right, it is Wednesday, my dudes, and on Tuesday nights, blowouts galore in the NBA. And by galore, I mean there are two of them. The Suns absolutely demolishing the Mavs. 4 players finishing the win in double figures. Devin Booker, 28 points, 7 rebounds. There's DeAndre Ayton there on your screen adding 20 points because the Suns made a point to get him more involved in the offense. And then Mikal Bridges breaking out of his shooting slump, finishing with 14 points. We got a lot on this show today. More games leaking on the NFL schedule, which will be completely released tomorrow. We'll have a schedule release show here on Friday on The Sweat. Also got some NHL playoffs, PGA Tour as well. But let's start in the NBA. We have DraftKings contributors, Julian Edlow here, Jeff Pratt, RotoWire's Nick Whalen. Good morning, everybody. Jules, your star of the night, who was it?
My star of the night. I mean, you can go a lot of places with this, given that the 2 games were combined, 65-point victories?
It was ugly, dude.
I mean, Devin Booker really broke that open for the Suns. I guess I'll go there, but you can go many which ways.
Okay, Jeff, what was your biggest takeaway in these 2 blowouts last night, dude?
Yeah, definitely 2 surprising results, especially considering the fact that both Dallas and Philly were coming off back-to-back impressive wins at home. You know, some people say that playoff series don't really begin until a home team loses, but these were 2 pretty pathetic performances, and they don't really inspire much confidence that the Mavs or Sixers can bounce back at home in Game 6. My main takeaway from this one was that coming into the playoffs, I was concerned about Miami's lack of high-end scoring talent. They didn't have a guy who you absolutely knew could get them 30-plus when it mattered. All respect to Jimmy Butler. He's just not that guy on the offensive side of the ball. However, that's not going to be a problem if 7 guys hit double digits in one game. Philly only had 3 players in double digits. None of them scored more than 17. Pathetic performance for them. I think both of these series could be over because, as we know, it's worth noting that teams who win Game 5 of a 7-game series that's tied up 2-2 go on to win that series around 80% of the time. So I think these ones might be wrapped up.
Okay, Whalen, which team do you believe is more likely to bounce back in Game 6 at home?
I think it has to be Philly for me, but I don't feel great about either of these. You know, we saw very similar games in the late window. And, you know, I think Philly is the team that at least has a closer talent gap to Miami, whereas I think Dallas, you know, did well to steal 2 games in games 3 and 4. But I think Phoenix is very clearly the better team, even if the Mavs have the better player. You could make the argument that talent to talent, Philly and Miami are relatively equal. Obviously, you have a lot of questions about the coaching in Philly. You have the Embiid injury. You have James Harden's playoff history. So that maybe makes you lean toward Miami. But in terms of talent, Philly absolutely is not a team that should be losing by 35 points to this Miami team at a pivotal Game 5. So do they have the fortitude, I guess, to bounce back? That's a pretty big question. But in terms of the horses on that team, this should be a much closer series, at least than Game 5 was.
Okay, Jules, as for tonight, you believe the Celtics can come out strong, and you like them as 5.5-point favorites here?
Yeah, biggest spread in the series so far. And I think that it's a combination of a few things. Obviously, Game 1 was the only time that the Celtics have played at home with their full starting lineup, and that was 4.5, 5. Conveniently enough, they haven't won a game in the series with their full starting lineup, or in the playoffs, since Rob Williams wasn't even starting against the Nets. So their starting lineup is 0-2. Everything else is 6-0. I think the number is set for Rob Williams to return and play. He just needed a little bit extra rest. And I think that home court maybe becomes a little more valuable here to get this later in the series to bump this number up a bit. It's a lot, but I think that if the Celtics do come through, you know, we've gotten some grinders recently. I think that they might do it with a little bit of margin. So if you read my best bets article yesterday, we put the Suns and Celtics together on a money line parlay. Obviously it's much more comfortable in these type of games when you need a team just to win. But yeah, if you're telling me I got to bet the spread, I'm laying it with the Celtics, and then I'm laying it with the Bucks, and then who knows what happens Sunday in Game 7.
All right, Whalen, you had Al Horford playing the Robin to Jason Tatum's Batman here. The series is tied at 2.
Al Horford was Batman.
You think so? I mean,
Absolutely.
But you don't think
Absolutely.
Tatum became Batman in the fourth quarter when he actually woke up a little bit?
You mean when Al Horford had 16 fourth quarter points?
Yeah. Okay. All right. Fair enough. Whalen, what do you expect?
I'm with Julian here. I think we're going to see kind of a back and forth series as it's been so far. It feels like the momentum has now shifted really heavily in favor of Boston. I think Milwaukee, after Giannis went on that individual run in the third quarter, that was capped off by that technical, kind of glaring at Al Horford after a dunk. I think Milwaukee thought they had this game won. I feel like in their mind, they were up 25 and they were actually only up like 9. And all of a sudden it's an 8-0 run for Boston and everything completely flips. I mean, 43 points in the fourth quarter for the Boston Celtics. You go a 5 of 22 performance from Drew Holiday from the field, his 8th time in 32 playoff games with the Bucks that he shot under 30% from the field. It's become an alarming trend for the Bucks, and obviously more concerning without Chris Middleton. So, heading back to Boston, I think Boston probably gets the win tonight. I think we probably see Milwaukee then bounce back in Game 6, and then we get a fantastic Game 7. Hopefully, fingers crossed, with Chris Middleton back in the lineup. But I have a hard time throwing my faith behind Milwaukee after what we saw for the final 12 minutes on Monday night.
All right, Pratt, no matter what happens here with Time Lord, I mean, the Celtics seem to be capable of taking care of business, like in the paint there with Horford at the forefront of that front line.
Yeah, I'm with both of these guys. At first glance, 5.5 points is a lot. But if the Celtics actually hit some shots and get off to a good start, they can cover this spread. Over the last 2 games, we've seen just how valuable Chris Middleton is to the Bucks, as Nick alluded to earlier. Giannis is going to get his, but Middleton has always been Milwaukee's closer, and they've really missed him in the last 2 games. They probably deserve to lose Game 3 after blowing a double-digit lead in the fourth quarter, but barely held on. In Game 4, the wheels completely fell off the bus in the fourth again, and they got dominated in the clutch when it mattered. Boston crushed the Bucks in Game 2 after getting off to a hot start at home, winning by 23. They have the momentum entering this matchup, and there's a path where this ends up as another blowout.
All right, Whalen, let's go to the late game here. Let's go out to the Western Conference. I mean, there was no Steve Kerr on the sidelines for Game 4 for Warriors-Grizzlies here. But tonight, Warriors now, I mean, this morning it was a 3-point favorite, now 4-point favorite on the road. We know Ja Morant has been ruled out. We don't know if he's going to play the rest of the postseason here. Do you see them closing it out on the road tonight?
It's pretty hard for me not to. This game being in Memphis, I think, is the one thing the Grizzlies have going for them. That crowd is not going to back down even without Ja Morant. But, man, it kind of feels like that Morant report from Shams yesterday was kind of the final gut punch, right, for Memphis, because we didn't really know what was going on with his knee. It's not like he's out there in a brace. He was at shoot-around in sandals, not exactly like the most sure-footed footing that you would think if you had a knee injury. So I think there was some thought that, maybe this was a minor thing. He could be back for this game. But then getting that report that he has a bone bruise and he's not coming back in this series or the playoffs at all was kind of the final punch, like I said, for Memphis. So I think, we've seen Memphis play well without Ja Morant throughout this season. But I also think they're not going to get the start from Golden State that we saw in Game 4, where it was 20 points in the first quarter, 38 points in the first half, a historically bad shooting night for the Warriors. History suggests that the greatest shooting team of all time is not going to do that again. So I know it's only a 4-point spread, but I would not be surprised if this is Golden State in a rout.
Yeah, Julian, do you anticipate another cold shooting night here for Golden State?
I do not. And going back to the Morant injury, it's such a weird injury because I thought it would be structural stuff because it was a Jordan Poole grab and pull, which I do believe to be accidental. He's going for the ball. It's moving fast. But it's I don't get how it's a bruise. He bruised him by pulling his knee.
Yes, dude,
I'm a little
it
confused
happens.
how that led to him being out for the postseason. I think maybe Memphis is lying. I think maybe there's a little something more there than a bone bruise from being grabbed. But either way, I'll play my best Shams role here. I'll tell you, Ja Morant is out for the postseason because Memphis's season is ending tonight, and there will be no more games for him to play. Golden State, what did they score? 140 something on Saturday night. And then they come back with an absolute clunker. They missed their first 16, 17 threes at home. Memphis won that game without Ja Morant. I said they had no shot to win that game without Ja Morant, the guy that gave them 47, 8, and 8 in their only win of the series. I know the regular season numbers, but those regular season games aren't playoff games at Golden State. And they still were in there. Pretty much Dylan Brooks and coaching decisions and stuff lost them that game. They blew their chance. Golden State knows how to close. I know we're hearing the experience, but they do have all the experience. It's going to show in this game, and Golden State's going to pull away.
Yeah, Jules, Desmond Bane's got to recapture that first round magic, right? If they have any chance.
I mean, yeah, and he's got the back injury going on,
Yep.
And he's not shooting too well. And Dylan Brooks is trying to play his best Ja Morant, and he's not Ja Morant, and that only helps the Warriors. So, very tough spot, even being at home for the Grizzlies. What I will say, I thought Golden State would sweep Denver in round 1, and they even came back and pulled ahead in that game 4, and still lost, and it went back to Golden State for a game 5. So, the Warriors aren't invincible, but I would be pretty surprised if they lose this game.
All right, Jeff, you at least got to give it to the Grizz for managing to cover the spread in game 4, at least without their best player.
Yeah, I'll give it to them for that, but put a bow on it. This series is all but wrapped up. I understand that the Grizzlies were 20-5 without Ja Morant this season. However, they weren't playing the most experienced postseason team in the league in those matchups. The Warriors aren't playing that well either. We all know how horribly they played last game, but they have enough to get it done on the road tonight. One of the main reasons Memphis was able to maintain such a high level of play without Ja was, just as you said, Emerson Desmond Bane, and he's completely disappeared in this series. 8 points in game 1, 5 in game 2, 16 in game 3, but 8 in game 4. Not only is he failing to carry the offense in Ja's absence, he's also lost confidence in his shot. In the regular season, he was taking almost 15 shots per contest, but he hasn't taken more than 10 in a game so far against the Warriors. And he isn't the only one who's come up short either. Dylan Brooks' stat line looks like he's going on tour, not like he's playing an NBA game. 3 for 13, 5 for 19 in the 2 full contests he's played. And his confidence continues to be irrationally high to the point where he's shooting the Grizzlies out of games. Memphis had the chance to make this series competitive in game 4, and they blew it. The Warriors will cover and move on tonight.
All right, Julian, my Robin, what is another bet fans should have their eyes on tonight?
For tonight, I'm not afraid to go back to Al Horford props, and I'm thinking if Rob Williams gets ruled in, like he's at 22.5 points and rebounds, that could tick down to 21.5 if Rob Williams is in, and there's really no effect there. He played 39 minutes and had 22 and 16 on Saturday. So I'll go back to Al Horford props for tonight, but honestly, my favorite bet on the board, give me the Heat money line tomorrow night. I know these guys said the Sixers have the better chance to bounce back of these two teams. Embiid almost put a fork in him in his presser after that game. Like, he was not happy. We know how Doc Rivers coaches these series. My favorite bet on the board overall right now for NBA is the Heat to just close this out in 6 as dogs.
All right, Jeff, what do you think?
At first, Draymond Green's point prop being set at 7.5 probably feels too low, but if you watch the games, he just simply refuses to shoot. In 4 games during the series, he's taken a total of 13 shots. He hasn't scored more than 6 points in a contest. He played 33 minutes last game and took 2 total shots. At this point, he's just completely committed to being the facilitator in this Warriors offense, just making things flow while Steph, Clay, Wiggins, and Poole run off-ball screens and create space. Unless he goes to the free throw line multiple times, I have a hard time believing he'll score 8 or more points tonight.
Whalen, bring us home.
13.5 points is the point prop for Al Horford. That seems a little disrespectful for a guy who's put up 52 in the last 2 games combined. Unless Milwaukee does something different defensively that does not include, leaving him just wide open whenever he wants for corner threes. I think he could clear that, by the end of the third quarter, especially if Robert Williams doesn't end up playing in this game and we see Al Horford, play 35 plus minutes again. So 13.5 for Horford I like. And then I've been tricked one too many times by Dylan Brooks. You got to go under 19.5, way too high for a guy shooting 33% from the field in the playoffs. Jeff mentioned it already. I mean, it was comical, some of the shots and some of the turnovers that Dylan Brooks had late in that game against the Warriors, a very winnable game for the Memphis Grizzlies, and he was the main reason that they didn't come away with it. So I think his confidence is at an all-time low. I think 19.5 is way too high of a point prop for him.